Hello, my super awesome tech friends. This is really exciting, something we've never done before. The opportunity for you to learn at home and for us to teach you from the interwebs. Super crazy. For my friends who do not know me, I am Mr. Ray. I own Kids Learning Tech. This is all my stuff, and we love getting to work with you and your families. So, hopefully, mom and dad are around and can help with any pieces here. But this, getting us started, this is our old tech class logo. We've changed it, but it's just gorgeous and super fun. But let's dive right in. The lesson we're going to be doing today is app building. Some of you are familiar with this. This is something that we've touched on in the classes, but a fantastic and super great lesson. Before we get going, however, to remind our players and participants at home, this lesson is designed for Android phones. If you do not have an Android device, you will still be able to do all of the coding and programming here on your computer, but you will be unable to load it to a phone. The program has some emulators. They frankly don't work well. If you want to come through for these building blocks, super fun lesson. We're going to learn a lot and do a lot. For the path at the end, though, you do need to have an Android phone. And if that is not the case, we emailed you an alternative lesson. So you might want to dive into that one as well. But here we are going forward. So here we have our adorable little app building logo. We're building apps. And let's dive right in. First, we want to discuss what our goals are. What is it that we're actually trying to do? So the goals for our app building course, first, we're going to teach what apps are. We're going to start at the absolute basics. Everyone is a tabula rasa, a blank slate from which we can build and mold our future super awesomeness. So we're going to teach what apps are. Then we're going to discuss how they actually work, how we use them, what they are used for, where to find them, and how to make them, and then also, most importantly, master your universe. What we are trying to do in tech class is empower all of our friends and really ourselves as well. The better you understand the technology that is around you, the more able you are to control your own destiny, to control your own life. Now, so many of the programs that all of us have, the way that we interact with technology, is increasingly built around apps, these applications. So, with that in mind, we want to break it down to understand what is an app. Now, I had already given away the store. The word app is short for a longer word. So we're going to give you guys a second, if any of you was paying attention, that I already gave the answer for this one. I'm going to count 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If you yelled out application, you are absolutely correct. So app is an abbreviation for the word application. And think about then what an application is. An application is something, well, just a basic term, something that we apply. In this case, it is a program. Let's kind of move it around a little bit. If we want to get the greatest degree of control around something, the best place to start is the dictionary. Looking at the name of something is so foundationally and fundamentally powerful for us because words have power. If you understand the definition of an individual word, especially the definition for a name for something, you have a special insight into why it was created and what its intended use is. Pretty much usually someone names something for a reason, and that gives a huge indication as to what that object, or in this case, program, is actually for. So, getting started, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, an app is an application, especially as downloaded by a user to a mobile device. Now, there's a word I want to focus on here, the word mobile. For our friends, let's think if we can say out loud what a mobile device is. I'm going to give you a second here so you can shout it out either to mom and dad or your sister or your dog or just to the universe there in general. What is a mobile device? Ding, 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 ding. All right, the answer, a mobile device, you would usually think is something that you can simply move because that is mobile. And that is a wonderfully astute answer and is unfortunately completely wrong. That's an answer that makes lots of sense. The thing about with technology, the people in general that make it, the men and women, absolutely brilliant. They're movers and shakers. They're ordering the universe in new ways. But when it comes to naming things, they're collectively as dumb as a sack of hammers. So a mobile device is not simply something that you can move. A mobile device is more of a technical or technological classification for consumer products, specifically, typically a phone or a tablet. They came up with a term mobile device when a phone was the only thing you could really move. Laptop computers weren't a thing, and the ones that were, they were about the size of a desktop, and the rest of the computers were just absolutely enormous. So the only really mobile device, one that could actually move, was an actual phone. So they named this stuff without having any idea of what was coming up. But this is an important insight for us to have so that we can understand what are we working with, how is it going to be applied, and further, how can we actually go ahead and master it. So again, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, an app is an application, especially as downloaded by a user to a device. I want to kind of focus on that other word, download, a little bit later as well, sort of in Super One. But now that we have a better idea what a mobile device is, a mobile app is a software application designed to run on a mobile device such as smartphones and tablet computers. So there we see the definition for a mobile device as being smartphones and tablet computers. One word I want to focus on here though is software. Kind of an interesting thing. So as I made my point previously, the progenitors of all these wondrous, wondrous things, absolutely genius. But when it comes to naming things, really not so great. So if I defined what hardware was, hardware is what you can actually touch. Hardware is your phone, is your tablet, is the computer that you're using for this right now, the TV, the mouse, something that you can actually touch. Software, however, you would think is something somewhere in the computer that is actually sort of squishy. And that's not actually the case. Software actually refers to the ones and zeros, the computer program, the executable files, things that we're actually using. So the software is a computer program. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit further for us here then, thinking about what an app is. What is an app? I'm going to pause this for a moment, and I want you to take a few seconds and say out loud, say the names of some apps. You should be able to name many, but I'm going to pause this for a second and let's give it a shot. Okay, were you able to name some? Interesting apps. A fun example usually here is YouTube or Netflix. And that's kind of interesting because it's a bit of an odd distinction that these are things that have apps, but they're not necessarily apps. You can access YouTube off of your phone or not on a tablet. You can access Netflix as well. Another really neat example is your parents probably use something very boring like a banking app. I know I do. There's an app for Wells Fargo, but Wells Fargo actually has buildings. We can actually go in there and walk in and get our money, or more likely give them our money as well. So it's one thing to be an app, it's another thing to have an app. An example is a game like Angry Birds, if that's something that anyone still plays. Angry Birds is an app. There's no Angry Birds place that I can go to. It's something that exists solely as an app. And while that may sound something like we're really splitting hairs, it's an important distinction to understand, and it also furthers our understanding of what these actually are and then the ways that they are actually used. So, kind of getting a better general idea that apps, simply, bottom line, they are computer programs on devices. Because our devices, the phone, the tablet, our mobile devices, they're actually just computers, just super tiny and super crazy effective. So we have a better handle on what apps are to have a deeper grasp and mastery of it. We can think more, what are they actually for? A very boring and in many ways, in that way, sad application for apps is for scheduling. Your moms and dads, myself, we use it all the time. It's a fantastic tool for knowing where you have to be and when you have to be there, keeping your life straight. One a lot of my friends are familiar with is using apps for games. Games are super crazy awesome. There's lots of great apps for them. A sad app is the alarm clock app. That is what we use to get ourselves up in the morning, but it's fantastic. I wouldn't get anywhere. I might sleep 24 hours a day like Rumpelstiltskin, or is it Rip Van Winkle? Rip Van Winkle, sleep forever if I didn't have an alarm clock app on my phone to wake me up. Internet browsing. We can use Safari or Chrome, Firefox, Brave, a lot of fun stuff. And that is what allows us to view things on the web. Those are apps as well. Buying things, the Amazon app. I know that far too well. It's a very sad thing, but it's also wonderful and great too. If you can, think about what else you can use apps for. Think about some other applications. I'm leaving a couple out because I want you to think of a really, really big one. I'm going to count down from 10 and let's see if you can name something else we can use an app for. Think of your favorite apps and what is missing here. So I'm going to count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and uno and zero. The big one is usually entertainment, watching videos, watching super, super cool things on YouTube, on Netflix, all that great stuff. I bet you could probably think of some other super cool things, but moving on. Where do we actually find the apps? So we've talked a little bit about what an app is. We've talked a little about what apps are for. Well, where do we actually find them? If you have an iPhone, you would find it in the App Store. We're familiar with this here. If you use Google, and this is kind of an interesting thing, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, you then find them at the Play Store, or Google also calls it Google Play. They've changed it a number of times. These are names that make sense. You have an iPhone, you want an app at the App Store. You use Google, you want to get an app for that phone, you go to the Google Play Store or the Play Store. And that makes sense. You play, it's kind of helpful. If you are using a Microsoft device, now there are no longer Microsoft phones because they made many, many, many hilariously sad decisions. But there are still Microsoft tablets, and on what is most likely the Windows computer you're using now, they have a place where you can also purchase apps. And this is kind of a fun one. Does anybody know the name of the store that Microsoft uses to have its apps? I'm going to count down from 5 and see if you can count it out. You see if you can holler it out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You might be familiar with this symbol. The name for the store that Microsoft uses is just Store, which might be the saddest and most unimaginative name that I have ever heard of. Apple, you've got the App Store. Google, you've got the Play Store. That's a kind of cool name. For Microsoft, they just call it Store. That might be part of an insight into understanding why there are no Microsoft phones, even though there was a time when Microsoft owned the smartphone market. In 2007, when the iPhone was just getting released, the CEO for Microsoft, a man named Steve Ballmer, could not stop laughing at how silly he thought the iPhone was. He said, nobody is going to buy this goofy, rinky-dink little thing. Everybody knows that Microsoft owns a smartphone market. Sure, you might have some little fanboys going and buying an Apple iPhone, but it's just a music player. Anybody who's serious knows Microsoft has the smartphone market. And, well, we sort of see how that happened. 13 years later, you don't see any Microsoft and Windows phones. Just to show that really successful and otherwise really intelligent people can sometimes be really, really crushingly, hilariously wrong. So with that in mind, this is always one of our fun little logos here. Again, I've changed our Tech Class logo, but these are just so delightful. I always want to have them. Furthering our understanding of what an app is, and, well, importantly, we've talked about where we get them as well. Now we're going to think about where we actually use them and understanding about a term that we're going to go with, platform. A platform, here we have our definition because, again, words have power. A place where a specific type of program can operate. That's sort of abstract and not a great way to understand what the concept is. So let's look at it this way. Let's pretend that this gentleman here, we'll call him Senor Jose. Senor Jose is a computer program. A computer program is really written in a language, so we're going to think about that. So Senor Jose, he hablas the español, he speaks Spanish, and let's think about The platform, the place where a program, or in this case language, is used as a country. So if Senor Jose attempts to go here to hablar de español, will they understand him? Is it likely that it will work? The answer is womp womp, no, because that is Egypt. Of course, there are probably some Spanish speakers there, but in general, someone trying to speak Spanish in Egypt will not have success. So looking at it that way, the program, in this case his language, is not the correct program for that platform, thinking of the country and nation as a platform. If Senor Jose goes a little further east and perhaps a little bit north, he goes to Mother Russia and he tries to hablar the Espanol in Moscow. Do you think they will understand him? Will his program match this platform? And the answer is niet, womp womp, no, because that is the wrong program and this is the wrong platform. They don't match up. Now, if Senor Jose tries to hablar the Espanol in España, in Spain, do you think it will work? And the answer is ding, 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 yes, because that is the right language, the right program for this country, for that platform. Now, let's take this and boogie on over to technology. If we have a Wii Sports disc, Wii Sports game, and we jam it into our Xbox, do you think it will work? Will the Xbox be able to play this Wii Sports disc? And the answer is no, womp womp, it will not, because this is the wrong program for this platform. If we take this Wii Sports disc and we jam it into a PS4, do you think that the PS4 will be able to play this program? Womp womp, no, because this is the wrong program for this platform. However, if we take the Wii Sports game and we put it into a Wii, do you think it'll work? And ding, 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 absolutely, absolutely. Now, let's use this for our apps. Say, for instance, we were able to take an app from the Play Store and we were somehow able to mash it onto an iPhone. Do you think it would work? And the answer is no, it would not work. Now, this can be a little bit confusing, and I want to talk about this for a moment. You may know that there is Facebook, and there's a Facebook app on an iPhone, and there's also Facebook apps on the Google phones. In this case, they have a fun name. We're going to get to that in a second. But they do the same thing, but they're completely different underneath. Sort of like if you pop the hood on two different cars, they've got different engines. Completely different design, although that is a little bit confusing. Sticking back with this, though, about programs and platforms. If I take an app from the Google Store, and from the Google Play Store, and I'm able to put it onto an amazing discovery. I got my hands on a Windows phone, or in this case, we can say a Windows tablet, like a Surface tablet. Do we think that would work? And the answer is womp womp, no, it will not work, because wrong program, wrong platform. Now, if we take something from the Google Play Store and put it onto an Android phone, do you think it will work? Waiting, and the answer is ding, 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 it will. Now, this is potentially a little bit confusing. Android phones are actually Google phones. And this is sort of a fun thing that we can discuss a lot further when we are in person. Different business models. Apple is the only place that you can get an iPhone. They control the manufacturer. They make all their own phones. Google decided to have a different policy and a different business plan. They said, we don't want to make anything. We just want to make the software and then charge people lots of money to put our software, in this case the operating system, onto their phones. You might notice the vast majority of Android phones or Google phones you see are made by a completely different company, Samsung, or even some other ones as well. Samsung decided they were horrible at programming computers. And they said, hey, you guys at Google, you're pretty cool. What if we gave you 2 truckloads of money every year to be able to put your software onto our phones and make them cool? And Google said, well, nope, we think you guys are jerks. Let's make it 4 truckloads of money, because that's what you can do when you have an essential monopoly. And Samsung said, great, here's all the trucks and all the money. And that's what they do. So Google licenses their software to think there's literally a couple of hundred different manufacturers around the world. If not a couple hundred, there's certainly dozens where they install the Android operating system. So you might be familiar with this symbol here. That is for an Android phone. An Android phone, for lack of a better term, is a Google phone. It's running that same language. It is a platform upon which this program can function. Now, to get down to our nitty gritty for everyone, the plan for building today, we will go through step by step what we want to do. Only do the step on the screen. Do not work ahead. I know it's very exciting, and I know you're very intuitive and you're very smart. You might know what that next step is. Humor us, stick with us for our single individual steps, and then once you get it down, you can go crazy and mash buttons like monkeys and you have fun there. But right now, only do the steps as they appear on there. At the end of the class, if you have an Android phone, then you will be able to load your app onto the phone and actually test and use it, which is super crazy bonkers. With that in mind, let's get ourselves started. We are going to use something today called App Inventor. App Inventor was made between MIT and Google. They got together and they wanted to provide a resource for people to just get nuts and to create and to further unlock the mysteries of their universe and really come up with stuff effective. So App Inventor, amazingly, is just a browser. It's a program running on servers at MIT and Google. This is what it will look like. I want to talk about our basic layout here. So the first thing in the middle here, this is our emulator. This is our theoretical cell phone. This looks like a cell phone screen. On this side, we have some of our basic tools. That's called our palette. And on this side are some of the settings. There's a couple places, but again, bear with me step by step. So our next process here is mom or dad, if they haven't already, are going to help you out. You're going to open up Google Chrome. We want to open up a Chrome browser. It will not work in Safari or Internet Explorer, God help you, or in Microsoft Edge. We need to use Google Chrome. Once you have, we want to go to the website ai2.appinventor.mit.edu. Go ahead and pause this video and make sure you're able to open up the correct browser and get to where we want to get. Hopefully you guys have pressed play again, and here we are listening to my dulcet tones. Once you have done that, we want to get ourselves logged in, and mom and dad, we're going to need to use your Gmail account. So using our Gmail account and then typing in your password, very exciting, we're going to bring up the new MIT App Inventor page, which is fantastic. Starting here in the upper left-hand corner, you want to click on Start New Project. If at any point I'm going too fast, part of the wonders of YouTube, press pause, wait, and then go on back and you can hear me say the stuff over again until you go crazy. So once we have hit Start New Project, we want to name this one Talk to Me. A very important distinction is, notice here, there are no spaces in between these words. That has to do with the fact that the Google and Android platform is built on Java. Java, for whatever reason, hates spaces. It has something to do with the logic and how its file tree system has set up. So anything for the name of our file or projects must not have a space, otherwise it will not work. So we want to type and name ours Talk to Me. Now, getting here for our screen, super crazy fun. So watch this video here, and we're talking about, in case one of your screens came up and there was another program, we want to type in Talk to Me. Notice there were no spaces. Very handy and very helpful. Talk to Me. If you need to put a number at the end, you can, but mostly just ignore that part there. All right, now once we have that squared away, another one of my fun, super older tech class fun logos, and yay, that one's one of my favorites, so pretty. Anyways, so now that we have the App Inventor page up and running, let's go to our very first step. We want to tell the program what to do. So our first thing here is we are going to get a button. Buttons are great. So on our left hand side of the screen, see where it says Community Button, drag that to this bad boy. Drag it to the middle of the screen, and when you do, your screen should look just like this. When it looks just like this, you're good to go for a button. Now, let's think about our role as a app developer and designer. If you are making something for a phone, do you want it just to say text for button 1? That's kind of a sad thing for it to say, kind of boring. There's not anything descriptive there. So we want to change that because we are masters of every single component of this program, and we're going to use that. So looking over at the right hand side of the screen, if you'll scroll down a little bit, you'll see where it says text. Let's change that from text for button 1 and type in talk to me. Fun important thing here is notice now there are spaces between the words talk and to and me, because what we're typing in here is not a file name. So Java doesn't care when we basically say things that are just going to be labels and something in general. It's only for the purposes of finding a file. So this one, use the spaces if you want, or you want don't use spaces, have at it. You're in charge of this process for yourself, but type talk to me. And once you do, your screen will have changed. Now, here's a quick little sort of run through, a little video. So dragging over there, button, it says text for button 1. Now we're going to scroll down and change the text. And the handy person typing in says talk to me. And once that, you got to hit enter. Moving up, now the button has changed. Super crazy cool. I'm going to let that cycle through and run again so you can see how that process works in case you're not sure. So clicking on button, drag that bad boy over, and then go to the right hand side of the screen, scroll down, and change the default text to say talk to me. Very exciting. Moving forward. Now that we have this, we're going to go back to the left hand side of the screen, and below this first white box we're going to find this is what's called a drawer. This one here is called media. When we click on that, think about it, it's just like opening a drawer in your kitchen. There's things inside. And under media, then there's camcorder, camera, image, these other things. Moving all the way down, you want text to speech. Drag text to speech over to the center of the screen, the emulator. Here is one tricky thing, friends. Don't worry when it doesn't show up on the main part of your emulator screen. It's going to show up on the bottom. It's going to show up down there. So again, here's a quick little video. We're going to run it through. So going over the left hand side of the screen, Mr. Mousy Friend is clicking on media, then Mr. Mousy Friend clicking on text to speech, dragging that to the center, and bam, now it has appeared below the screen because it's not an on-screen element. It is a function. That's an important distinction that we'll understand as we go a little bit further. Our next thing then is look at the other upper right hand side of your screen. You'll see this little button here that says blocks. Click on that boy and we will begin our coding journey. Your screen should look like mine. Left hand side of the screen, you'll see screen 1, you'll see button 1, and text to speech. These are elements you created, which is super cool. Clicking on button 1. Let's think about what we have here right now, guys. You have a button. A button does nothing until you tell it what to do. We're programming. So when you click on button, you'll have these, they almost look like sort of puzzle pieces. You want to choose the very first one. It says when button 1 dot click. Drag that bad boy to the middle of your screen, and then your screen should look like this right here. Super fun and super important. So getting a general idea of that again, so here's a video of it. You're going to go to blocks, going over to button 1, clicking that one. You want to choose the first one, when button 1 dot click. If you are unsure of where this stuff is, take your time. Let this video just pause. You don't have to rush through anything. Take our time. We're just seeing how this works again, and I think you can handle it. Once you have that squared away, we're going to go to our next part. So under button 1, you see text to speech. Click on that, and then you get this part here. You want this purple puzzle piece, for lack of a better term. Call text to speech 1 dot speak. You're going to drag that bad boy, and it clicks wonderfully right here. So let's give ourselves a second there. Once you've done that, it's going to look just like this. So you're going to go to the left hand side of the screen, click on text to speech, click on that bad boy, drag it in and click. Now we're cooking with gas. Our next step then, think about what we've done. We have a button. Great, the button doesn't do anything. We just gave it some function. Now, when I click on the button, it will speak. The problem is it has nothing to say. We want to give it the option of saying something. We're going to do that here with text. We know that text means words. So I click on text. You want this very first little guy, little quotation marks and a blank space. Click on that and drag it over, and your screen then will look just like this. So let's think about what we've done. We're programming. We are making a computer reach our desired end, which is super cool. When we click on the button, it is going to speak, and then it needs to say something. Let's give it something to say. I like to tell it to say, tech class is awesome. Now, some of my observant friends may notice something funny about this first word here. I spelled tech, T-E-C-K, but everywhere else in all my propaganda, you see that it is spelled T-E-C-H. Can you think of why I would spell it this way? I'll give you a couple of seconds to sort of shout it out to either mom or dad or the universe. Waiting, 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 waiting. Okay. Many of my friends, I'm sure you got it. If you didn't, that's totally fine. We spelled it this way so that the computer says it the right way. If we spelled it T-E-C-H, the program would have said Tech class is awesome. And that isn't really what we're talking about. We want it to be tech. So we want to trick the computer into saying it the way that we want them to. Here's a video again, running through what you just did, or if you need some help, follow through along here. So we clicked on text, dragged that box over to there, and then we're going to type in, I like to zoom in here a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. Going to type in then that tech, T-E-C-K, class is awesome. Super fun. Now, you're done. Amazingly, you have created an app. You've created an app, which is super crazy fun. If we stop right there, then it has already been a complete super fun victory. But we're going to go a little bit farther. If you have an Android phone ready, and if you also have, and I put this in our email instructions, you need to have a QR code reading app. So if you do, go to the top of the screen, click on Build, and you want the first option here where it says App, Provide QR Code for APK. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but it'll give you this. Amazingly, friends, you see a lot of these boxes. You'll see it on this sort of black and white box. You'll see it on bread. You'll see it on the sides of bottles of pop or pasta, any sorts of things. This, unbelievably, is a website address. A website address that a computer, in this case your phone, can understand and see visually. All these dots, whether spaced in a certain way, is going to give your phone a certain web address. And this is what is super crazy fun. But let's kind of walk through this process again. So if you're unsure, then you're going to go to Build and click on Provide QR Code for APK. Sometimes it takes a little while for that to load, but when it does, you'll have that code there. And on your phone, so assuming you have an Android phone, go to the QR code reader, click on that bad boy, and you'll take a picture of it, and it will give you an address. This is a unique address. In this case, it's ai2.appinventor.mit.edu/b/JOAE. What Google and MIT did is really super awesome. They gave your app, and your app alone, its very own web address, which is nuts. So your app is on this server somewhere in the country or world, and it's accessed through this web address. And your phone or tablet device is now going to download that software. Let's go through these steps. So when it runs this, and it's going to ask you, this type of file can be harmful. You want to download anyways? Yes. Okay. And then our next one then, do you want to, if you already have it and they're existing, another wrinkle, and I need to add this for our screen. Sometimes you'll be asked to change a setting. You need to be able to install apps from unknown sources. If a pop-up shows up for that, hit OK, go there, click on unknown sources, and then it'll come back here and then replace file. If it has that as an option, then open, install, and then open again, and there is our app. And on the phone, if you hit talk to me, if you did it correctly, you're going to hear the voice say talk to me. If you did this successfully, you get a super virtual awesome bam high five from me, and I'll give you one in person when we actually see you. And once you do this successfully, go back now and change what the app is going to say. Instead of saying tech is awesome, have it say you are awesome or whatever you like. And then moving on from there. And this is our first app building lesson. Have at it, guys. And I look forward to seeing and talking to you, all of you, super, super soon.